Hi guys, welcome to Rootstem. Let's take a look at some of these changes for 10th edition 40k. Hi guys, thank you very much for joining me today. Got my glasses on, got a PC in front of me, and we're going to be having a look at some of the changes that's come out regarding the errata that dropped Thursday. I'm recording this on Friday, and how it might change on how you play some of your games. So right off the bat, one of the biggest changes to the actual game is going to be the change to Devastating Wounds. Now, I don't mind the change to a lot of the Devastating Wounds. I think that Devastating Wounds can be a little bit overpowered. It can be too overpowered, to be honest, in certain situations, especially when you've got things such as the Eldar that can have an automatic 6. Doesn't really affect Sisters of Battle with faith points because they don't really have a lot of Devastating Wound weapons. But yeah, it's become a bit of a contention for a lot of players, Devastating Wounds being a thing, because they can be very powerful. And let's be honest with this, the Devastating Wounds, if the weapon itself, if it was like applied to a las cannon, the idea that a las cannon is only supposed to be able to take out one man but do a lot of damage to a tank, having those mortal wounds spread out through a squad, if it was on a las cannon, I'm not saying it is, but if it's those mortal wounds being spread out for like an Imperial Guard squad, have you all stood in a line while the single laser goes through everybody? Yeah, I understand why they've changed it. There is a little bit of a problem with it though. Now I'm going to bring up one particular unit where it's going to be a bit of a problem, and that is the Colossus. Now, on the Colossus, it has Devastating Wounds on its Colossus Siege Mortar. Now, this used to be known as a Colossus Bombard. I don't know why they've changed it to this particular unit. It no longer has an indirect fire capability, probably for the best with it having Devastating Wounds. And the idea with the Colossus Siege Mortar, in previous editions of the game, it was a huge blast template, and it was pretty devastating to pretty much anything that it hit. That was the idea of it. It was a very weak chassis vehicle, but the Bombard could really do some damage. Hence why it has the rules such as anti-monster 5+, anti-vehicle 5+, to have the abilities to be able to destroy vehicles vehicles and monsters quite effectively. But the idea is that if it was hitting a normal infantry target and got the 6 to wound, those mortal wounds were supposed to spread out through the squad to represent the fact that this huge blast had hit and had taken out quite a lot of its potential target. Because of a change to Devastating Wounds, this now feels like the Siege Mortar, rather than it being a huge Colossus weapon, is now been limited to something very small. I don't know if they're going to change some of the stat lines on this. For example, remove Devastating Wounds and then put it down as anti-monster Devastating Wounds or anti-vehicle Devastating Wounds, and maybe give it a bit more shots when it targets infantry, or say that it gets to reroll to hit when it targets infantry. I don't know. But effectively, this Devastating Wounds has really reined back the Colossus to the point where in my games I'm probably going to be only using it as an anti-tank weapon, which is not really what it's designed for. Now, one of the bigger changes as well is come to stratagems. So you can now, they've kind of clarified and realised what's happening when it comes to modifying a stratagem CP cost. Rules that modify a stratagem CP cost of a stratagem, but that does not specifically name of a stratagem, can only be used to affect cost of battle tactic stratagems. This does not apply to Aircast Colossus, Striding Colossus, or Tower and Rave construct abilities. So they're really doing, like, getting nitty gritty on what type of stratagems you can affect with a lot of your special abilities. The second one being, which I come across a lot when I'm playing Space Marine and Custodes armies, is this stratagem that can only be used with more than stratagems can be used more than once per phase or turn. So rules that allow you to use a stratagem even if another unit has been targeted by that stratagem this phase or turn do not specify the name of a stratagem, can only be used on battle tactics. Now, what that basically means is, as an example, if Asraman has a particular rule on his profile that states tactical acumen, which basically means that he and his unit in his wave is allowed to use the Overwatch stratagem for free. He is specifically stating that unit there can use that Overwatch stratagem again for free. I do come across it in Tyranid armies with the Hive Tyranid, but I don't know what that's going to be like in the future. I've not seen the new codex. I don't play Tyranid, so I probably won't be getting the new codex. But that is quite useful on there. It's going to make it out that not quite useful. It's going to make Asraman a bit better to take, probably why his points have gone up. But it's also going to nerf a lot of the, hey, I've got 3 captains allowing me to do 4 Overwatchers with a Space Marine army per turn. It specifically states on the rules that it can only, the balanced data sheet specifically states that it can only be used on battle tactics. I do come across it in a lot of Custodes armies because, of course, I don't really have a lot of characters. Weirdly, Custode forces, majority of their stratagems are battle tactics. With only Vigilant Ending and Sworn Guardians not being battle tactics. And in the Space Marine Codex, data sheet, I know there's going to be a codex coming out soon, but at the time of recording, the only real one is Armor of Contempt and Storm of Fire. Those are the only real stratagems that you're going to be able to use a lot, multiples of. When you come to the basic stratagems, currently, I believe there's only 2 that count as battle tactics. We've got Go to Ground, allowing you to get a 6-up invulnerable save and count as being in cover, which can only apply to infantry. And I believe it is Command Reroll, which is a battle tactic. So there's going to be a lot of players maybe a bit disgruntled about that. You might see some points drops, or maybe some point stagnation, maybe not changing that much in the points cost to try and fit with some form of new meta of the game. But that is going to change how I play against those armies. I don't play Custodes myself. I do play Space Marines, but I've only had a couple of games in this new edition. I'm not really concentrating on them this time round. I was going to concentrate on my Eldar, but so I can see me fighting those in a very different way, in a very different style. The fact that a unit can only Overwatch once, pretty much the entire game, unless it specifically states it can use Overwatch again, is going to change my tactics against these armies. We'll find out. I'll find out soon regarding the Tyranid Codex once it comes out properly, what it can and can't do, and what I'm going to be limited to, seeing what and how I'm going to be able to react against it. But having a lot of those torrent weapons that Tyranids seem to be able to get access to currently, and not being allowed to use Overwatch if you spend a CP, it's going to change the game a little. And of course, there's been a couple of changes to some of the existing stratagems that we've currently got. We've got a change to Overwatch. It's basically changed it so that you can only shoot at an enemy that's visible. I get that. It also states that you cannot use Overwatch now on a Titanic unit. You cannot target a Titanic unit with this stratagem until the end of the phase. So, unfortunately, Night Forces, you're going to have to rely more and more on your Armigers, and less on your big lads. You maybe even taking a couple of allies just to be able to either lay down some supporting fire somewhere, or at least hold some objectives. Insane Bravery has also been changed to before you take the Battle Shock test. I don't know if I like that, because you don't get a lot of CP. So having something where you're focusing and thinking to yourself, I really, really need that unit to sort of survive, but I get to roll it first. I didn't see that needing to change, if I'm completely honest. I thought the Insane Bravery core tactic was quite okay. Again, it's another one of those, it's an epic deed stratagem, so those players previously are not going to be able to use it over and over again. We will see what that's going to be like in the next few upcoming games. And one of the big, big changes to the main game is the Ruins visibility section. So previously, Ruins visibility was models cannot see through this terrain feature, cannot draw a line of sight through it, etc., unless you were wholly within it, or if a unit was touching toe into, I don't know how best to explain, if a unit was partially in there, it was allowed to be shot at but couldn't shoot out. We've now got a change to that with towering keyword. So now what it's going to be is aircraft models are going to be the only ones with total exception. I can understand that because aircraft is supposed to be very high up. You're not really drawing a proper line of sight to the model. For me, it should always be aircraft can pretty, unless you're pretty well hidden, aircraft can nearly much see everything on the board, but also can be shot back at. Towering units now are stated that they that are within this terrain feature can also see out of it normally. So that a knight doesn't have to be wholly within a terrain feature, it just has to be partly within a terrain feature and can shoot out. But it also means that a knight cannot be behind a ruin and shoot. It does also mean for people that are playing against knights that they can actually now hide. This is a good thing. It means that knights are not going to be vulnerable to returning fire on that first opening fire on that first turn, but we're also not going to be able to take advantage of absolutely decimating some of your best forces before you get a chance to shoot them on that first turn. I'm going to see, I haven't really looked at the points cost of everything at the moment. I can probably see maybe some knight costs come down, or probably plateau and stay the same. I did see the Elder one, and I've noticed that their the Wraith Knight has gone up in points. That's fine, but it does mean that the Wraith Knight can now hide. So moving on to some changes in faction rules. I apologise for what I said earlier about the majority of the Custodes being battle tactics. Their Unwavering Sentinel stratagem has been changed over to Epic Deeds. This probably means that they're not going to be able to have a lot of changes, a lot of units going first when somebody else charges them. The Custodian Guard, it's mainly on the Custodes, the changes are mainly just for unit sizes. This could be a good thing or a bad thing. Again, I'm not really a Custodes player, so I don't really know how that's going to affect a lot of people. I know the Mechanicus, I don't know why the Mechanicus Rangers and Vanguard units were not 4+ armor to begin with. Why they were 5+ armor, which is Imperial Guard armor, I don't know. I'm sure they used to be a 4+ in a previous game. I've not played Mechanicus for a while. Elder don't really have much of a nerf. Have just basically stated that the Phantasm stratagem can only be targeted to infantry. Yes, Phantasm stratagem has the ability to be able to be played on anything currently, as it's written. Now it's going to be restricted to infantry. I have used it for hit and run attacks with my Elder jet bikes, or they're called Skyrunners now, but the Elder jet bikes, I've used them to come in and then, of course, pull back out. That felt thematic to me. I can't remember if that unit is keyworded infantry. But from what I can see, looking at other units such as the Shining Spears, they have mounted and fly. So it does look like we're not going to be able to use things like Phantasm with your jet bikes. You may have to change your tactics there, Elder players. Agents of the Imperium have received a bit of a nerf. The Extraction Squad datasheet, which a lot of people are complaining about, was 35 points for 5. They have been changed now. You have to take the full squad of 10. And they have changed the war gear options, which I do have an Extraction Squad upstairs. And I'm hoping I am not violating any of this with the Extraction Vigilance. Because I have them for Kill Team, so I've actually got 2 Extraction Squads for Kill Team. One of them completely made up of shields, and the other one made up as a normal team, which I can then mix and match in my Kill Team games. I did use them once in a game against Tyranids, weirdly, and I didn't find them particularly great. But the points cost being quite cheap was quite an advantage. I do think they've gone up to like 110 points now, so they're probably not going to be as great to take. I might be taking the shield guys if I do want that type of unit in there. I like to take them with my Sisters of Battle. I like the theme of it being a defense force. So Death Guard now, spread of sickness detachment rule, add the following. I think it's just enemy units within contagion range of it will have their characteristics modified. That's really the only change I can pretty much see on that. I've not really come across a lot of Death Guard players, I think, because of they had a bit of a bad time when it first started. I think that has pretty much put a lot of people off either using them at the moment or even collecting them to start in 10th edition. Death Watch. The stratagems in Death Watch has been changed. I do have a small Death Watch force, again, for thematic purposes. It's nothing to do with it being I'm not wanting the Space Marine force. I'm wanting, this, that, and the other. I collect an army of the Imperium most times. I quite like having little bits of each Imperial faction just for story purposes when I'm doing my narrative games. Dragon Fire round stratagem, it's all come down to bolt weapons, and I've actually given you a huge list of what counts as bolt weapons for Space Marines. Why this wasn't a thing to start with, I do not know. Why it needed a clarification and changing, because it always used to be those type of rounds that could be affected. I just don't get it. I really don't. Now, for me, one of the biggest changes for one of the armies is the Genestealer Cult rule. Cult Ambush Army rule has been changed. It's been nerfed, which could be a good thing. I have used it. I have had a lot of people not like the fact that I kept recycling units all the time. This is now changed to you can only recycle a unit on a 5-up. If it's battle line, you get a +1, which makes it 4. And if it's the first or second battle round, you get another +1, which makes it a 3 for battle line, 4 for everything else. It was automatic for battle line because if you read the rules right, you only failed on a 1 on shooting or wounding or saving. You didn't fail on a 1 on anything else. So these guys being able to just bring them back constantly was quite a challenge. I can see some points cost changing. Hopefully see some points dropping with that particular unit. We will find out. Also, the Attilian Jackal's data sheet has changed to a 9-inch instead of 6-inch. That I understand because it meant I didn't even bother with them at some point because they were quite hard to bring back. Some changes to one of the stratagems, I'm guessing, in effect from the changes to the balanced data sheet, regarding the change to just battle tactics. I'm guessing getting rid of battle tactics from various different unit types. Imperial Knights have the Bondsman ability. Imperial Knights have a slight change to their Bondsman ability. They've also had a Thunderstop stratagem change to Epic Deed, and some of the costs of their stratagems changed to 2 rather than 1. Now, I'm hoping, even though this has come out as a balanced data sheet, I'm hoping we're going to see this reflected when you use the app or when the recent downloads. So if there's any changes to the downloads, I'll probably get rid of the old PDFs, get the new ones, make sure that all the rules are up to date. Leagues of Autuam have had a different, some ruthless efficiency detachment rules, number of detachments, select a number of units depending on the game size. I think it was 1, 2, and 3, but I'm not sure. They start the battle with 2 judgment tokens. That's probably a balancing thing just to try and make sure that Leagues of Autuam have got something effective going in. 4 units though for a strike force, if you're versing something quite heavy like Custodes, you're pretty much going to be picking everybody on the board. And that's it for the changes to the game for now on the current balanced data sheet. We're doing this again in 3 months' time. Devastating Wounds is a big one. Also, the stratagems that can be used more than once per phase, I think, is also quite a big one, but not for everybody. It's going to be for particular armies and people that build their particular armies in a certain way. It's not going to be everyone that's going to be affected by that. It's just going to be certain people, mainly Custodes armies, probably NID armies, and Space Marine armies. I can see them getting a lot of problems with that. I do think there's one of the Genestealer Cult, but I didn't tend to, well, did I? Yeah, I may have done. Yeah, I may have actually used Overwatch on that. So yeah, it's the Nexus. I think he actually gains that ability. I might find myself trying to figure out a different way of using these units. But yeah, that's it. Runes visibility as well. I can see that being, I'm saying they're 2 big ones. That's 3 big ones, really. Ruins visibility, where towering units are no longer going to be able to just blatantly see through all ruins. That's a massive change. And I can see that changing a lot of, it's going to ruin a lot. These 2 rules combine, the ruins visibility section and the devastating wounds. I can see that causing a lot of problems for current Elder Tournament players. I'm not a tournament player, so I really don't give a crap. It basically means that I'm going to start being able to take my Wraith Knight and not have everyone whinge about it, which is great. Well, thanks very much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, hit that notification button if you do want to see more, and we'll see you on the next video. I am going to be having a video out as well that's going to be including the points, so if you want to, please check that one out.